Harrison, where'd you get that chair? On the side of the road?
It came with the office. It's a little rough, I know.
Wanna make that paper, wanna make that dough. This is the affiliate marketing show. Wanna make that paper, wanna make that dough. This is
Oh shit, we're recording this. Oh no.
Oh, what's up, everybody? Josh Sebo here with OfferVault.com. We have the affiliate marketing show. We are back. We got a ton of special guests lined up, and our brand new co-host Adam Young from Ringba, the CEO of Ringba, and Harrison Gevirtz. And today we have Dave Maman from WeCall. What's up, Dave?
What's up?
How we doing?
Doing great, man. Thanks for having me today.
Yeah, no problem. Adam, say hello. What's up?
Hey, man. Dave was just telling us about his planned birthday post on Facebook. I'm very excited for it. He's going to thank everyone for
bash planned.
Liking the posts, and he's going to have a full birthday month celebration.
There's like elephants walking in. It's a big thing. Production.
Yes, big production.
Harrison, I like the artwork.
Yes, it doesn't want to stay up though. I guarantee you during this podcast, it's just going to fall and make noise randomly. We will see, but that's where my money's on.
So Dave, what's going on, man? What's new with WeCall? What's new in your life right now?
Well, WeCall is coming off of an incredible year. We had a record-smashing year, but and we're coming off of AEP, annual enrollment period, which is the grand finale of our year, and it was fantastic. Frankly, it was. I'm if I understand correctly, this is part of the conversation you want to have, or at least on the topic for today. But yeah, it was a fantastic AEP. It's been a really exciting year over at WeCall. We couldn't be happier with the overall performance and results for the year. It's been an exciting one in pay-per-call.
That's great. Adam, are you guys seeing the same kind of thing with Ringba and you're tracking your pay-per-call clients related to AEP in this time of year?
Oh yeah, we saw an incredible amount of volume, just an astronomical amount of volume. I mean, if I do the math on it, it's somewhere like $1 billion worth of Medicare phone calls or something that flowed through the platform this year.
Nice. So Dave, what happens? Yeah, go for it.
I was just going to say, to be honest, heading into the season, I think there was, I think that a lot of folks were pessimistic, I would say. In fact, I was going out to conferences, speaking with buyers, and the general sentiment going into AEP was very, very, very pessimistic. A lot of that had to do with, just a change in the macro environment. The larger buyers and the larger call centers having their stock price absolutely demolished in the last year. Their stocks have come down like 95%, with a lot of people questioning the viability of the business model in its entirety. The business model is basically the lifetime value of a policy written minus your operational expenses, minus your cost of acquisition. That's where lead providers come into play. And we, I think did some pretty amazing stuff compared to 2021 to really help our buyers hit in the one area that we could help in is on their CPA. And, it created quite the ripple effect throughout, the fact that they were not hitting their KPIs, and a lot of people questioned the viability. Well, there's two areas where they need to attack: is the LTV, the three areas: the LTV, the operational expenses, and the CPA. Well, we could help on the CPA. They all got slashed jobs everywhere, and they ended up, reducing their operational expenses. And from what I understand, they're deploying resources to extend the lifetime value. In other words, it's making investments in customer retention. So those are really the three levers that they have at their discretion. And they all got shellacked last year towards the end of 2021 on their stock price in the beginning of 2021, as we all know, and they needed to make these adjustments. So, that created a much tighter market. It became much tougher to generate calls. There was much more competition. Our price got reduced by about 25%. The lead price got reduced. But, this was all a lot of pressure, and it made for a very intense annual enrollment period. But ultimately, it led to what I think is a cleaner ecosystem, a more efficient Medicare ecosystem, and therefore, a higher probability for sustainability and longevity of our campaigns. Because, obviously, if our buyers can't make it work, then we're not going to be in business much longer. So it really was in our interest to help them out. And it looks like the results are paying off. In fact, you see Go Health in the last 4 weeks, their stock price has increased 3x in the last 4 weeks. So it's all looking really interesting to see this play out, or how it's played out over the last 12, 14 months.
It's funny you mentioned that, Dave. Harrison and I had numerous calls, and these were legitimate strategy calls. Also with a friend of ours who's the CEO of an insurance company, where we were discussing potentially acquiring a 10% stake in one of these public companies in the space, because we couldn't, there was a lot of baggage around those companies, but we couldn't believe how low the stock price was. And you could effectively, for a few $1,000,000, pick up a 10% stake or a 5% stake in one of these companies, get a board seat, and just it was a unique opportunity. Now, we didn't end up pulling the trigger. We got as far as reading the SEC filings and diving into the math around
The debt
what the policies
didn't look
are
so
worth.
nice.
Yeah, exactly. The debt.
My
was
dad
terrible.
said, "No way." He, finance guy. He was like, "Run."
Yeah, the long-term debt, especially on two. It depends which one. I suspect I know who you're looking at, but it depends on who you're looking at. Not all of them have such crazy debt, but yes, I hear you.
The way my
let's
dad
unpack
put it was
that.
one was just the least. He didn't say any of them were good. He said one was the least bad.
Yeah, there was one that was the least bad. Exactly. I should send you a report. I have a very interesting report to send to you guys that basically compares all the big guys and after their Q3. So I'm really curious to see how Q4. We all know how huge Q4 is for these guys. I'm really curious to see the Q4 earnings, and I suspect if Go Health is pumped 3x their stock price, is that they hit their numbers.
They essentially recovered. Like this year, they're still down like 75% for the year, but it's gone up like 163% in the last 30 days.
Yes, I know. I bought their stock at $6. It's at like $16 now or something like that.
That's a good one, man.
Nice.
Yeah.
Let's unpack that LTV. Let's unpack that LTV issue for a second, because I think it's really telling, and it fits the affiliate marketing narrative in kind of an amazing way. And so what happened here is the health insurance lead buyers were booking a 5-year LTV or long-term value for their policies as they were writing them. And then some, not all, and partially, they financed some of the user acquisition or all of the user acquisition. And so they were booking 5-year LTVs and then financing the acquisition costs to bring in those customers. And what they quickly realized, and the market clearly realized, is that a 5-year LTV was never happening on any of these Medicare policies. And so, now they're saying a 2.5-year LTV is probably what it's going to be. But even then, I think that's a little sketchy. And so the policies became worth half of what they thought they were on paper. And then the Fed raised interest rates, in a significant way that we're all aware about. And so these gigantic lines of credit that some of these companies have are all variable rate, like they're usually tied to LIBOR or some type of index. And so their interest, the juice on all these policies they financed, went up to 300% or maybe even more. And then they found out the policies weren't worth half of what they booked on the revenue. And so it created the perfect storm of just sort of financial destruction. And to your point, Dave, Josh asked me if we had a great AEP, and we did, but that's because of the growth of our business and our platform, not the Medicare market. I think in general, most companies were hit pretty hard this year during AEP, and budgets were contracted. You know, we had a customer hit us up, big customer, great customer. I've known them for a really long time. They drive really high quality traffic, and they hit up their account rep the night before AEP and said, "Hey guys, we're fucked. We just lost our biggest buyer. What do we do?" We're like, AEP opens in like 4 hours. So do you want to contract new buyers now? And so this was really prevalent. I think we saw a huge shift in cap allocation for lead generation across the entire space. And some companies, like I know you did really well, Dave. Some of our clients had banner breakout years, and those companies are the ones who do business better, had really good compliance, were really thoughtful about what they were doing. And then a lot of the call brokers and a lot of the companies who aren't as thoughtful lost a lot of their allocation this year as companies cut the partners that they wanted to work with. Did you see similar, Dave?
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, and to your point about brokers, you know, we used to broker at some point, but we saw the writing on the wall that you don't bring value as a broker. In fact, you're a broker tax, and you're not really improving the product, and you know there's not much value there. So you're right. When there's a market constriction or contraction, the market has to become more efficient. So one of the more efficiencies was getting rid of that broker tax, and while that sucks for a lot of the brokers, it did make the system more efficient because you know, and I think buyers were seeking out direct publishers, and direct publishers were seeking out direct buyers. So I think it worked out well.
Yeah, and I think this contraction is a really good thing for the industry. It washed out a lot of people who might not necessarily do a great job, and that's better for everybody. I think when you improve compliance across an industry, you see much more longevity. And I was talking to some affiliates this weekend at an event, and they were all concerned about where Medicare was going and if it was just going to disappear. And I thought that was pretty funny because it's a regulated program with like infinite government cash. So it's not going anywhere.
It's only
Medicare
getting bigger.
Is not exactly. It's one of the only verticals that keeps growing because the demographic keeps growing. Every year, people age into Medicare, and ultimately, you know, you could talk about property and casualty, like Allstate, working with companies like Allstate and State Farm as being great folks. But I think we saw in this most recent quarter, all of those guys pulled out and screwed over a lot of companies that were heavy in the property and casualty. And that's because it's a private company who will make decisions based on, you know, what's best in their shareholder value. The people behind Medicare, the ultimate buyer behind Medicare is the United States government. And the United States government is the buyer, and they have the biggest budgets in the world, and they ain't going anywhere. Medicare ain't going anywhere. ACA, maybe because it's politicized, but Medicare, that ain't going anywhere. It's the most funded vertical in all of pay-per-call, and to me, the safest and most secure. I ain't getting out of Medicare anytime soon.
I was going to say that I think,
go ahead.
I think a lot of the buyers became conscious about the quality of what they were buying as the cost of capital came up, because when there's no yield and you get these, you know, capital for nothing, you hope for 5 years, but you're kind of just like, well, it's free money, so who gives a shit? We'll just finance it, and eventually we'll make our money back. And now they're actually looking under the hood about what they're buying, which is good for you know, the power players in the industry. But a lot of people were complaining to me about it a couple of weeks ago, and I think it's a positive change. You know,
look, it was super frothy last year at this time. Or it was about to pop. I think it kind of popped at this time last year. And that's what happens when things get uber frothy and nobody's looking at the fundamentals of the business. But ultimately, people had to look, and Wall Street looked at the fundamentals of the business, and they were the judge, the jury, and they decided that this is horseshit. Get your act together. And now all of these companies are scrambling to show Wall Street that we got our act together, because that's what this is all about. That's really what ultimately what their responsibility is to increase that share price. That's the CEO's objective. That's the CFO's objective. is to increase that share price. So their goal right now is to go back to the street and say, you see, we can run a profitable business. That's what they're all trying to do right now. They're all going back to the fundamentals of business, and that means making money, not chasing top line growth like they have been for the first 3-4 years. Now they need to show Wall Street that we could generate positive cash flow.
Profit, not just revenue.
Not just revenue, precisely, profit.
And I think this is my prediction in the space is we just had contraction. We just had a come to Jesus moment where everyone had to pay attention to their profit, right? And not the revenue. And so I really think we're somewhere near the bottom, which means that over time, as these businesses get their systems together, the market normalizes, pricing on media normalizes, we're going to see more budget allocations, growth in the space, and next year and the years beyond, we're going to start to see a more responsible upswing, which is going to provide a huge opportunity for companies like yours, Dave, and other players in the space. So that's my prediction anyways. Obviously it could go bad, I guess, but that's what at least I see.
Yeah, and I also just wanted to let you guys know that I am still on the phone call. It's just one of those instances where it's like, let the professionals do the talking. You know, I'm actually learning a lot, just like I'm sure a lot of our people listening and watching are. But Adam, you mentioned like the space is continuing to increase. And I did read that the Biden administration announced just recently that there's basically a big uptick in the number of people buying private health insurance for the upcoming year. What kind of, well, first of all, do you think like, how accurate is that? Is it also them just saying that to try and get more people to buy health insurance? But what kind of effect do you think that's going to have on the call space, the health insurance space, and the affiliate space in general for 2023? And this is a question for all three of you guys, not just Adam.
Yeah, I think that it is accurate information. I don't think the Biden administration is lying about policies sold on the marketplace. One thing to note about that is the fastest growing segment in the marketplace is actually Spanish speaking in the United States. And so you have twofold opportunities here, which I think are absolutely massive. You're going to have a lot more ACA lead generation. You're going to have a hell of a lot more ACA pay-per-call, but the most profitable and fastest growing segment of that is actually going to be in the Spanish market. So for those companies that can do it in Spanish, they're going to see a lower cost of acquisition, a higher yield, and then that space is going to continue to grow. And so I see ACA for, you know, all types, for affiliates, lead generators, CPCs, CPA, pay-per-call.
I read a statistic
that really growing.
That was talking about why there's been an increase in people purchasing private plans through, you know, the ACA, you know, purchasing their own plans versus employer plans. And it also has to do with the gig worker economy, because you have an actual percentage, and I don't know the percentage, but, you know, millions of Americans that are leaving traditional jobs where they, you know, received benefits with their employment, and now they're doing DoorDash or Uber Eats or whatever, and Instacart. Now, you know, they have to go buy their own policies. And so I think that's one of the contributing factors to that sector's growth.
I mean, I'm a member.
That's a real interesting point, Harrison. I'm surprised we haven't seen any specific offers or marketing angles that are targeting gig workers for ACA or health insurance. That might be a huge opportunity.
It's definitely something I thought of hearing Harrison pitch. I said we got to start aiming for that.
Quick run,
every
Dave,
time I'm in an
typing.
Uber, every time I'm in an Uber, I ask if it's their full-time job. I'm like, do you drive? They go, yeah. Now I'm going to ask how they get their health insurance. After they tell me it's
I want that data, please. Keep me posted.
I mean, these private. Oh, go ahead, Dave. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, as far as marketing ACA, you know, I heard that the Biden administration has incentivized the carriers. At least that's what I understand. I don't have any fact, or I don't have any articles to point to, but from what I heard is that the Biden administration has a stated goal of increasing the ACA enrollment from 20% of Americans to 40% of Americans. And in order to do so, they have thrown a lot of money at carriers to incentivize them to do that. From what I've heard, that they've increased the spiffs and the bonuses and the payouts to the carriers to get folks enrolled.
Yeah, I was going to say, I am on my own private plan, and they're not the cheapest of plans when you're not getting it through your, employment and stuff like that. So I'm wondering, like, is part of the uptick related to them making these plans a little bit more affordable, or is it also like kind of what Harrison was
I
commenting
think
on
the A of affordable from ACA is just like branding. I don't think they, I get crushed too.
No, I wouldn't say that. It is highly subsidized healthcare, right? So the government's paying for a big chunk of it. That, by definition, makes it more
for
affordable.
certain individuals.
For certain individuals making under $50,000 a year.
It's subsidized by us,
criteria
Josh.
on it.
Yeah.
Look,
they charge us a lot to subsidize.
Exactly. Listen, coming from Canada, I fully understand that. But trust me, this is sort of like a two-tier system. You have free healthcare with Medicaid. You have ACA that's low to no cost. Then you'll have your own, work through employment for people that have more money. So I believe that, when people talk about this sort of black and white binary health system that exists in America, it's a fallacy, and I'll tell you, it's far better than mediocre healthcare for all, as we have in Canada, where my dog and my niece both tore their ACL on the same day. My dog had her surgery in 48 hours because she had private healthcare, and my niece needed to wait 9 months because she had to get on the government wait list.
I just heard something similar. I know someone with kidney stones. They won't even take the kidney stones out. It's been months. It
right.
Sounds
you got to wait. If it's a
sounds.
Non-essential surgery, it's the government that's going to decide when you get that surgery. If you're in pain, shut up or go pay for it somewhere else.
Well, that's a really good point, Dave, about going to pay for it somewhere else. I actually had my appendix taken out in India for an emergency surgery a few years ago, and I paid for it on my way out the door, $1,000 in cash, and that was the end of it. Pretty good. So
a lot of money in India.
It's definitely a different system, around the world for sure.
I think you got ripped off for India. That's a lot.
Yeah.
It was the American price.
Taken out for $700.
Yeah. No, I mean, I was just happy to get that pain under control. Definitely an experience for sure. Speaking of traveling, I was actually just in Bangkok for the Affiliate World Conference. It was good, man. It was my first time there in about 3 years, just because of the pandemic that was going on. But honestly, it hasn't changed a whole lot. I'd say the biggest changes that have occurred in Bangkok is that a leafy substance that may affect the way you feel is now readily available on the streets. And
in Thailand?
In Bangkok, Thailand.
Fully legalized, Adam.
There are medical shops everywhere.
What?
Yeah, in Thailand. I thought they chopped hands off.
They're on.
They used to put. They would. I can't begin. I went to Thailand and I've partaken in leafy substances in my youth, and perhaps even beyond. But
CBD stuff, right?
Okay, sure. If you want, sure.
There was CBD involved. Yeah.
We can just call it weed.
Look, it's just cannabis. Look, cannabis is legal in Canada. I'm Canadian for all intents and purposes. But yeah, I was scared to death. Like I'm a pothead, and I was scared to death to smoke pot in Thailand. I would never dare. I was scared to go to jail. Everybody knows about that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I was surprised to see that. And I don't know.
What did you see? Like there were billboards at hotels. Dude. Like this guy's in jail. Go visit him. Like they would shake you down for tons of money.
Yeah. Now it's like every street corner. You got it's not like the green.
Are you smoking weed right now?
No, just this. I
thought it was that. I was like, wow, this guy's got balls.
He's like, all right, now that we're talking about it, you'll feel comfortable. Might as well just
Elon Musk smoked on the Joe Rogan podcast. I figure I might as well, no?
There he goes.
The other biggest change I noticed in Thailand, and I don't know from experience,
420 somewhere.
Somebody told me that adult websites are now accessible. I don't know if you guys realize this. In Bangkok. Again, I don't know from experience.
They were not. Yeah, of course.
But I used to go. Were they banned? I had friends that went. I mean, I had friends who told me that it was very hard to get on those sites in the past.
Josh
didn't
called
know
me
that.
at 2 a.m. asking how to use a VPN, obviously to access online banking.
But yeah,
Obviously.
weed and porn is apparently much more chill. And it's
Good for
interesting.
them.
I wonder if it has anything to do with the government and the new leadership, and maybe just a difference of opinions, because maybe it's
What
not
happened?
related.
What changed?
Well, I know their previous king died about 3 or 4 years ago, if I'm not mistaken. And
He did.
and I wonder if maybe the new king or the new leadership was like,
The young guy was like, let's do this.
He's like, let's chill this country out a little bit.
I remember they used to always say, like, we don't want Thailand to become the Amsterdam of Asia. Like, that was sort of the
But
trajectory that they
the
felt that
COVID
they were on.
pandemic probably really killed their tourism industry.
That's
and then
gotta
you
be
think
it.
about it, it's a competitive travel world. You can go to Thailand, you can go to Bali, you can go to Hawaii if you don't want to travel for days. Now it's like,
Sure.
well, okay, Thailand sounds great, So
Yeah.
it probably helps them there for sure.
I was still
Yeah.
able to get my $10 hour massage, which is all I needed. And it was
Amazing.
just a massage,
Hey.
regular massage.
Hello, massage.
Okay.
You love
And,
that. I love hello
So
massage.
Josh, what were some of you went to the show? The three of us didn't go to the show. Like,
What was the main thing?
dominating the show? Yeah, like what type of offers? What's the
Yeah.
industry doing? Like, tell us about that.
Is
not
the
your
show a
massage.
little bit higher brow,
listen,
or
I
is
was
it
about
still
to
like
I was about to bring it back to the show. You beat me to it. Yeah, I'm always constantly surprised with how many new networks and advertisers I see pop up year after year. I'm just like, how is this possible that everyone keeps reinventing themselves? Whether it's new networks or old networks that are rebranding because something happened to the old brand, I can't say for sure. But either way, there's new companies popping up every single year, which, for OfferVault, that's great for business. I love to see it. I love when people tell me they've never heard about OfferVault, because that's a brand new ear and a brand new brain for me. You don't agree with that, Dave, or what was that?
No, I think I'm shocked that people don't know OfferVault.
Oh,
Like,
yeah,
as far as
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
concerned,
So am I. But
on the
I'm like,
contrary.
okay. I'm like, okay, let me dive into my pitch for you. But yeah, I would say I saw a lot of crypto, Forex, and trading companies that are still killing it, especially with the size of the booths and their footprint on the floor plan of the trade show, which I actually thought was kind of not surprising, I would say, but just given the space of that space, it's interesting to see that, they don't really seem to be too affected by what's going on in the crypto market right now.
What do you
at
think is
least
going to happen in the market?
personally, I would defer that to Adam and Harrison.
I think that there's some cleansing going on, especially with the whole FTX thing, and we're gonna get into that. But I think that
let's get
regardless
into
of
it.
that, I mean, just
Is it
on
true
this
that you
topic,
Harry, is it true that you're best friends with Sam and you guys went to boarding school together?
no, but I will say that if I grow my hair out, I look way too close to him. I'm like, okay, I'm never growing my hair out ever again.
Do
ever.
not.
And if
do
I
not.
get fat, then I will be a clone.
Yeah, I got into the space pretty late, honestly, like just a few years ago when things were booming, and I'm like, take my money, crypto. But I'm under the impression that I'm just kind of forgetting about it. I'm gonna wait for it to bounce back, just like our regular stock market does. There's ebbs and flows. I'm trying not to, be reactionary, more so play the long game. But obviously, I hate to see this. It doesn't instill any confidence in me. If anything, it was just like a good learning experience. But I'm not rushing to pull my money out. There's no point in doing that right now. But
I think that
events...
the advertisers at these shows, they're going to be unaffected because no matter what, people want to like make money. They want to invest. They want to let's just say speculate. And doesn't matter what happens. There's going to be someone speculating. And so those advertisers, those affiliate networks that focus on Forex, that type of stuff, they're not going anywhere because there's like 8 billion people on this earth and everyone wants to, everyone gets that itch sometimes.
So let's
And not
pretend
only that, Harrison,
oh yeah, go ahead, Adam.
these events, hold on a second. These events, these regulatory events that we're seeing. And so just so everybody knows, if you've been living under a rock, Sam Brinkman-Fried, did I get that right? SBF of Bankman of FTX was just indicted by the Department of Justice in the Southern District of New York for all sorts of wire fraud and conspiracy, I think. I only had a chance to glance at the indictment. And the SEC is also charging him concurrently. And so this guy was arrested in the Bahamas the other day, denied bail, and he's most likely going to get extradited to the United States to face charges over this. And so while everyone is screaming like, oh, the crypto market's over, look at this giant collapse. And yeah, it's a huge fucking problem and a collapse. But the United States government just went immediately to regulatory action against the company. It's in bankruptcy proceedings. And so what I think we're going to see here is that the market's going to regulate itself. Crypto, if you own shit coins or FTX coin, you're fucked. But if you're holding Bitcoin or you have offers in the crypto space, I think it's really business as usual. I don't think anyone's really getting out of crypto. I think people are going to cut their losses on a lot of these altcoins. But I think to your point, Josh, it doesn't surprise me at all that the crypto and Forex advertisers at Affiliate World Asia were taking up all the prime real estate on the floor. I don't think the price matters with those offers. I think demand matters. And even though a few people who are involved today got scared out of the industry by these regulatory actions and probably sold
10 people
their
waiting
coin.
at the door.
Yeah, exactly. To buy their low-priced coin, right? Like Kathy Wood, who is, she runs ARK Invest and the ARK Innovation Fund. She was on CNBC, I think 2 days ago, and said that she still has a price prediction of $1 million per Bitcoin by 2030.
Well, I think I think she's a lunatic.
Yeah, that's fine.
And look at her and look at her stock price. Look at her stock price.
ARKK make you cry.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
scary.
ARKK
It's
make
scary.
you cry.
I don't know how much.
Is it down 62% YTD? Woo! That sucks.
Yes. But Dave, fine. So not $1 million, right? But you had a $65,000 peak, and we've already seen this conversation. Look, I got my first Bitcoin in like 2012 or 11, and it went up to $100, and everyone was like, this is the end of the world when it crashed back down. And then 1,000, and then it crashes back down to 80. And people are like, see, I told you so. And then 10,000, then 20, then 65, and so maybe not $1 million.
But I still think it's got potential.
Well, I
remember
hearing it was going to be like well over 100,000 by the end of like last year, and I think a lot of people are very optimistic.
Interest rates destroyed that dream.
I was going on YouTube and there's guys that are like, look at this trend. If you zoom out far enough, you could see that there's this 4-year thing, and every 4 years, and I'm like, okay, cool. Like we're gonna be good. And then it doesn't happen. And
so that's how you're doing your investing, Josh?
No,
the guy on
YouTube
who's
YouTube
exactly.
He has like a cap on backwards.
Financial advisor.
So,
and then they're like, okay, well, let's zoom out further. And then they're like,
Yeah, Dave.
Are you suggesting that this is just the 2022 version of Mt. Gox that collapsed crypto?
Yeah.
And it's not going to be the last one. There will be more.
No. Harrison's exactly right. And look, I am not some crypto fanboy that's running around professing how amazing crypto is. But I will say this, look, Ringba has employees all over the world. And even today, in very developed countries, we have some team members that aren't in the United States. We still run into issues occasionally paying our employees their salary, sending money to them. And so that alone is an indicator to me that cross-border payments have problems. A lot of these economies around the world are closed. For instance, Brazil, some European countries are a pain in the ass. You have South America, there's a bunch of countries which are a pain in the ass. And so to even hire people, you run into these finance and banking issues. The employees get all sorts of fees, taxes on their payroll than they wouldn't otherwise. And so, I mean, when I see Bitcoin or crypto, I see an easy way to do cross-border payments. And that to me has a utility function that's legit. Do I think that, it's going to eat the world and, Bitcoin is going to be $1 bajillion a coin and, we're all going to buy private islands? No. But I do think that there is some function built into the technology that in some way, shape, or form will get implemented over time, right? Like I'm a pragmatist about it.
You combine the blockchain with AI, I think there's and honestly, that's the future.
If you guys want the name
blockchain AI conversation,
you're not gonna have a blockchain AI conversation.
No.
Adam will go deep. I did read that indictment, Adam, and sometimes the government will give you lots of info, sometimes not. They didn't give too much yet. They just kind of said what he's charged with. The real smoking gun that I read was that he essentially had his developers build special tools, secret software that allowed him to move assets without actually reflecting the dashboards that like auditing people had access to.
Correct.
And then the real thing that fascinated me was that he was like, obviously everyone knows he gave money to every politician under the sun, which made them charge him with campaign violations. He was using mules to donate, so his name wasn't associated to donations. And what he was lobbying for was this legislation that would allow his crypto exchange to have every kind of security listed: futures, stocks, commodities. And there's an interview from Terry Duffy, who's the CEO of the CME Group, the Chicago Mercantile Exchange. And he said that
incredible
his quote was, "It would have been a biblical disaster across the entire financial markets if what he was lobbying for would have been allowed to happen." Because what he was trying to do was they would clear their own trades. So that would have meant that what they were doing would have been allowed to happen at a global market scale with assets that are not even on their book. And it could have collapsed like everything. And so this kid is totally screwed. And, I was thinking about it. I wonder who his lawyers are, because he's had multiple lawyers quit. Maybe it has to be his parents, because they're both lawyers. Like, who's paying for this? Like,
I seriously believe that he is so delusional, so narcissistic, and so arrogant that
all the Twitter spaces.
Yes, he's out.
The government was watching every one of those. That's why they probably waited to prosecute. It's like crazy.
No, I think he was trying to change the narrative so that it was hopefully going to be a civil problem,
negligence
versus a criminal
versus if it's negligence, it's less of a charge than fraud.
But that takes balls to think he's going to change the narrative. That shows incredible arrogance, because the narrative, like the court of public opinion, and information already leaked out, and there's going to be an investigation. Like, you're dead to rights. You're cornered, pal. The arrogance that you have to try to, at this point, listen to your lawyer. And I can't imagine any lawyer worth their salt wouldn't be saying anything outside of "shut the fuck up" right now. You need to shut the fuck up.
100%.
Why is he out there talking? It's the craziest thing I've ever seen.
You think he saw this coming?
Well, when you raise billions of dollars while you're playing League of Legends, and you don't care, and no one seems to do any diligence, and you get to tell anyone who's doing diligence to go fuck themselves. Like,
literally, he did. Did you see the interview he did with Andrew Ross Sorkin? Like the DealBook interview? I did. And there was something that bothered me at the end. Everyone applauded. I was like, what? Are you applauding the interviewer? Are you applauding this criminal? Like, what the heck? It was a very weird. It was confusing. And he said, "Oh, I had a bad week. Everyone laughs." I'm like, these guys stole people's life savings. Adam and I have some friends that have lost everything in this thing.
Yeah.
And I think literally he kept going on these Twitter spaces, and I think they just kept collecting evidence, because he continued to say, it was like, "We didn't knowingly use customer funds, but we did." Like, come on. So that he's done.
I just wonder how long ago he knew like that this was coming down the pipe, because like they just recently were trying to acquire Voyager with all the stuff Voyager was going through, and
Voyager, BlockFi, a bunch of them.
Right, and then they just turned around and ended up doing the same thing, and that was before all the indictment. At first, I believe it was like a Chapter 11 or something bankruptcy, and then it like started to spiral out of control. So I'm wondering, like, was this something he was like, "Man, I really hope this doesn't happen," and he kind of knew about it?
I think Luna really hurt him when that happened.
Yeah.
I don't really know the technicals behind that. And then I think what really screwed him was they were propping up their entire business market valuation with this FTX token. And then when the guy at Binance, CZ, he pretty much tweeted out like, "Yo, we're selling $500 million of these coins." and that thing went from like $20 to $3 overnight because it turned out all the liquidity was fake. It was their hedge fund market making on their shitty exchange. So, oops. You know.
So let's turn this back. I mean, this is a fascinating conversation. I could talk about this for hours, but let's turn it back around to marketing, right? Like, I think it's clear that the crypto and Forex space isn't going to change. Like, the demand's going to be there and it's going to keep going. So something I saw, which I thought was interesting, is related to TikTok advertising, and it's probably going to flow over to YouTube and Facebook or basically any other type of creative, right? And that is that music labels are starting to sue brands who are using TikTok to promote their products with TikTok's content. And so I don't use TikTok, and so I'm not sure exactly how this works. You know, I'm not, well, I'm in my late 30s, so I just don't use TikTok.
I don't use TikTok, but I dug into this a lot, Adam.
I'm older than all of you, and I use TikTok.
Oh, you're gross.
And we advertise on TikTok.
I think there's a lot of
so Dave,
there's a lot of
so
dancing.
You need to know what's going on there, because you might be next.
That was my TikTok dance, Josh.
Yeah, exactly.
So when users go on here and they create ads for their brands or affiliates, even more importantly, affiliates go
or
and create
influencers
ads for brands or influencers. They're using the stock or the music that's available on the TikTok platform, and TikTok's terms and conditions explicitly state that the music cannot be used for commercial use and can only be used for personal use. And so when an affiliate goes and creates an advertisement using TikTok with the music for a brand, the record label can come back and sue the brand, the affiliate, or the influencer for the music rights. And so the liability grows on this, the better your advertisement is. If you have one that just hits it out of the park and gets 10 million impressions, the liability of getting sued for the music goes through the roof. Now, Dave, the look on your face right now is one of concern. So tell us about your TikTok advertising.
No concern. Zero concern. We don't use any copyrighted music, of course. I'm not concerned with it, to be honest with you. And I think I think that's stealing. If you're going to use somebody else's content or material, that's just not right.
I kind of assumed that the majority of, name brands and stuff, they're all licensing, they don't just grab audio and use it. But the thing is with TikTok and where it gets messy is there's brands that do product deals with people, and they can't necessarily control the music that the people promoting their brands or products are doing. And so I started to research like how this music licensing works. And I actually signed up to Universal's website where you can license stuff. And I will say, if they want to make it mainstream that you pay when you use something, they got to make it easier, because they don't even give the prices. Like I'm not approved. I signed up yesterday. But it should be a self-serve thing then, or there should be a way to correct it without being like sued to the high heavens. Because if you're Nike and you give some creator some shoes and then they go play a Dr. Dre song, and you don't even know, and you have nothing to do with it, they're just sprinting in this and there's a link to Nike, like that sucks for them too, so it's like,
well,
really
they probably have an indemnification clause in their agreement with the creator, but the reality is, if the creator is just a micro influencer and has no money, yes, there's an indemnification clause, but they're not going to be able to pay for the lawsuit against Nike. What are they going to do? Like sell the other free stuff they got?
Sell the shoes, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Are they going to eBay some shit to pay a $10 million lawsuit? And I think, to your point, Harrison, that's right. These record labels are crazy. They're not making it easier on the influencers to do it. And in our space, the affiliates,
if you want the good
music, be the same thing,
which you need.
Yeah.
I found websites where you could pay like $100 a month and then get access to all their shitty music. But if you want to go do viral TikToks, you got to dance to the Tyler, the Katy Perry song or whatever, So there needs to be an easier way to do this, or like a way.
No, there's sounds. But what if you use one of the sounds that TikTok provides? Is that what you're referring to, or is like a song?
So if you make a video and you click one of the music or a certain that sound, it might be a 20-second snippet from a music, from a song.
And there's no royalty. So Instagram does that too, right? Where you could add songs to.
I am not cool enough for Instagram.
I'm a big Instagram guy. I was actually going to say, like, I see videos all the time where I hear people using songs, and then like under the handle at the top, like whose account it is, it tells you like the audio, and it'll be a
ask
song
for a tag.
Yeah, it'll be a song I know, and it'll say original audio, and it's just like their way
Right.
of trying to like go around the system so that Instagram doesn't do it. But honestly, I have to assume Instagram, just like YouTube, they have like algorithms and technology in place that just recognizes the actual audio wave file.
I've clicked on a YouTube video and it's muted because it's like audio was pirated or whatever.
Right, yeah.
It's
So
like
I
a
think
video of someone
exactly.
skateboarding and there's no audio.
they are.
Well, the
cracking
record
down.
labels are all hurting. And so they're just finding a new way to litigate themselves to profit. And so they're building technology countermeasures to detect this when they see a brand, or they have a team of people who are just looking for really viral ads or, influencer partnerships. And then they see, look, it's got 23 million views. And so now you need to pay your licensing fee. And I see this as a huge revenue opportunity, but the record labels are doing it entirely wrong. Like, TikTok should be doing a rev share like an Apple iTunes, so that advertisers can use the best music and then pay royalties right on it, a percentage of ad spend or a CPM even. I'd risk it on a CPM. Same with Instagram.
They should even charge. They should even charge users, individual Instagram users. Think about the monetization there, even on a micro transaction, to add 5-10 cents to use the song in this TikTok. You know what I mean? Or a quarter to use this in your video.
People would pay.
Instead of making billions of dollars using technology correctly, these record labels are still caught in 1989, and they're like, let's just litigate some influencers that are living in their parents' basement and go after the brands when they could literally partner and take what? Just like iTunes, they could take like a fucking 80% rev share of royalties on music and just provide it to all people that are doing advertisements, their entire portfolio, and it would solve the problem. So call us, record labels. We can help you.
That just seems like a huge task, though, given the unlimited amount of artists that are in the space. I mean, I wonder if they could tie it into like ASCAP or one of like the royalty companies and use it like as a
Josh, it's already there. TikTok is already giving people access to the music. You just have an account flagged as a brand, or you
like when you make a
TikTok
you like can choose like the background music or something.
Yeah.
Sorry, I avoided that app. I care about my personal security. I have no devices.
I would never install that garbage.
No way.
But yeah, there's a song library already in TikTok, and all the record labels have to do is get TikTok to make a feature that says, like, check this box. If this is an ad, you're going to pay 10 cents per 1,000 views.
Mm-hmm.
They already have the billing systems. It's already in there.
They're for sure tracking it.
Yes, they're tracking it. Like, the way these companies go about it is absolutely bananas.
Terrible.
To me. Like, it's a huge opportunity. Everyone could profit on it, and yet they're just going to go around and start litigating it. Like, that's their solution.
Well, yeah, it's 10 cents per 1,000 views, like, worth it to the artists or to TikTok or the companies compared to the litigation. You know what I mean? I forget what I think the CPM on Spotify for that for listens is a couple of cents. Mm-hmm.
Like, so 10 cents is very generous, but it's advertising, so it should be more expensive. But I think it's like 3 to 5 cents per 1,000 listens on Spotify, and it doesn't mean they click it. They have to actually like listen to at least a certain percentage of the song for it to count. Mm-hmm. Or they don't pay anything. So, but the key to business is long-term viability and sustainability and happy customers. And so suing brands does not make them happy. Suing influencers does not make them happy. And so and they'd hit a wider audience. I think they'd make way more doing this in a more thoughtful way than going after affiliates. And at the same time, now you're going to have a bunch of affiliates doing what you say, Josh, like modifying the song slightly so they can still get the song and defeat the copyright software. And so it's still going to be a problem. It's a game of whack-a-mole is basically what they decided to play, and nobody wins in a game of whack-a-mole. It's not a fun game. Yeah. It's lame. So Dave, I want your thoughts on this, and I didn't have a chance to send it to you before the pod, so I apologize for that. So I'm going to put you on the spot. So the state of New York, yesterday, the governor enacted a change to
450B, which is the telemarketing rules for the state of New York. And so in the past, telemarketers, of course, they have to only call between specific times and follow do not call list laws, and they have to identify themselves when they call a consumer. The exact language is the telemarketer's name and the person on whose behalf the solicitation is being made. So you have to say, hi, I'm Adam with Super Telemarketers. I'm calling you about your mortgage or whatever. And so they've changed this so that you have to identify yourself first. But now, before you even talk to the consumer, you have to give the consumer an option to automatically be added to the seller's entity-specific do not call list. And so what that means is before you can actually tell the consumer why you're calling, what you're selling, if they're interested, you have to offer them the option to opt out of the call. And it is not specific. It is not specific at all whether this has to be done by a human or an IVR or anything. And so what I think is going to happen is in the state of New York, they're going to start to put IVRs in place that tell you who's calling and then press 1 to opt out before it ever gets to an agent. And so, Dave, I'm curious because I know you guys do transfers and work in the call center space. Obviously, how do you think this is going to affect people's businesses that dial into the state of New York?
Well, the key part to what your question is people that dial into the state of New York. And the reality is that the state of New York is already so regulated that this is just yet another regulation on top of the hyper regulation for why most folks don't really operate in New York. We don't do any outbound dialing to New York precisely because of how problematic it is. Even selling Medicare policies in the state of New York is problematic. Selling ACA in the state of New York is problematic.
Wow.
Every aspect of New York governance is highly regulated. So no matter what vertical you're in, whether it be debt, legal, insurance services, it's always going to be more complicated in the state of New York. And consequently, our clients tend to not do business in the state of New York, but they're in, say, 30 different states, but not the state of New York.
Wow.
So do you think this backfires then in a way? For instance, obviously for the marketing companies and companies like yours, it removes some opportunity because the regulatory compliance
it's going to hurt the
is more
consumer
expensive.
too, though.
Yeah, that was my point.
That's what I was thinking,
consumers
too.
lose access. Consumers lose access to goods and services.
Correct. That's ultimately
These won't even sell policies there if you can't market.
Correct.
No,
But doesn't it give some of the power back to the consumer in terms of like all like the spam calls that are going on to people randomly and stuff like that?
Sure.
Like,
That's a valid argument, but the problem is if there's 10 companies in one space and 9 of them go away because they're like, we can't even do our customer follow-ups now, or so, because of these rules, whatever, then the price of the product goes up if there's less options, less selection.
And you're also,
hold on a second. I actually disagree, Josh. It doesn't stop the spam at all. The people who I get 25 phone calls a day.
I've gotten like 5 during this podcast.
Yeah, exactly.
Literally.
And so the spam calls, the ones that consumers get harmed with, aren't going anywhere. The only phone calls that are going to disappear are the guys like Dave who actually care about compliance and what they're doing. They say, you know what? I run a great business. I'm not touching this because I don't want to deal with the regulatory compliance. So then the consumer is only left with very few options, right? The companies pull out and then they still get the shitty spam anyways. Spam doesn't go anywhere.
Exactly. You took the words out of my mouth.
It's like the bad of the bad players that are left.
I know this wasn't on our agenda, but on the topic of this spam, do you guys have any like insights as to why this has gotten so out of control over the past couple of years? I always remember like it happening once in a while a few years ago, but the past few years, it's like it's part of my everyday life now. It's just blocking numbers and blocking numbers that I'm getting text from, like, "Hey, Susan, are you interested in this blah blah blah?" I mean, there's just like
someone's using your number as a test lead, bro.
Yeah, but it's like the technology like getting better and easier for people to be able to do that? Has something actually happened
No,
that's caused
actually
it?
the opposite for sure. I mean, the carriers and Dave, you could probably attest to this, have done a lot to make it harder to spam. But the problem is the phone spammers are just throwing more bullets at the wall. You know, they're just hitting more to make up for it. So like
their technology is keeping up, basically.
okay, yeah. Like, okay, you're gonna block us. We're just gonna do more calls, and something's gonna fall through. Good luck.
It's again, it's whack-a-mole. It's a compliance.
That's the
game.
best analogy.
There's a lot of it's whack-a-mole, and there's a lot of money involved, especially for offshore guys, where these guys are pretty freaking desperate, and they're outside of the reach of the law. So what repercussions do they have? It's brokers that are complicit in this that are the problem, if you ask me. That are collaborating with offshore guys, and they're lured by very low cost economics of their services.
Yeah, and very low labor costs too. And so if you have really low labor costs and you have a high CPA and you can afford to have someone sit there for $2 an hour or $1.50 an hour and just hit as many people as possible, they're going to try. I mean, on my phone, I've been getting a lot during AEP. I answer a couple of them because I'm curious. And the vast majority, or 100% even, of the ones I have answered have been unqualified. And that's the more amazing thing. People are calling me to ask if I need Medicare. Clearly, I don't qualify. And
I'll tell you what's happening there. There's something very common in the industry called connected dialed records, CDR data. So what I've discovered in the last year to year and a half, and one of the main reasons why we got entirely out of third-party transfers, is that the data is bunk. It's not compliant. People opted in at some time or another, but from what I've heard, dialer companies are getting records of phone numbers that got connected. Therefore, the term connected dialed records or CDR data. And
they know it's a good number.
They know it's a number that somebody answered. So every time you answer the phone, you're basically telling the dialer company this is a real number that someone's going to answer. So the dialer companies or an employee at one of these dialer companies or whatnot, somehow the data got backdoored and it's being sold on the market, or is being backdoored and is being sold to all of these call centers that all they care about is their connect rate. Because for them, the biggest risk in their business is to purchase data, and only 5% of the people actually answer the phone, and they're out $5, $10, $20, $30,000 on a bunch of data, and they only generated $2,000 worth of calls, right? That's their risk. So if they can eliminate that risk, naturally you see the allure of connected dialed records. But the problem with that is that gets circulated and circulated and circulated, and anybody who did answer gets hit so freaking hard, they could get up to 25, 50 calls a day.
Well, that's what I was going to ask.
Does it make a difference if you answer or if it goes to voicemail? Because I always hear people saying like, oh, well, if you pick up, it's way worse. But if you don't pick up and it still goes to voicemail,
it's worse if you pick up, even if you just pick up and hang up, because they know it's a real number. They have software that knows, okay, that guy picked up. We're going to keep hammering him till he accidentally thinks it's like someone else calling and answers, and then we're going to
correct. Voicemail, you're characterized as voicemail. You're less attractive than somebody who's answered.
Answer and then immediately hang up is they know you're listening. You're actively engaging with your phone.
And they'll call you 184 times. They'll keep calling you until you answer. They do not take no for an answer. We do not take no for an answer.
Trust me, I know. So, Dave, I don't think it's necessarily as nefarious as you characterized. I'm sure that there are nefarious actors with the data.
That's part of it, I'm saying. I'm saying it's part of it.
Yeah. No, well, my point is I think there's a lot less nefarious activity, but even more data selling, right? So I think what's happening is these companies that are doing outbound or inbound, or it doesn't even matter if they just have customer data or call data where people answered the phone or called them or whatever it is, they can sell those caller IDs, and just it's a way for them to make additional money. I don't necessarily think that it's nefarious. I just think companies are out there, and I see this happening all over the internet, like, hey, selling our dial records. Like there's people just openly selling their caller IDs.
People don't know the rules
their
either.
Dial records. Yeah, exactly. Well, they don't care, because if you're onshore and you have all this data, legacy data over the last year, and you're done with it and it's not producing for you, you can just sell that to an offshore call center. And I'm not a lawyer, but I don't think selling your data to an offshore call center is illegal. Maybe it is for the offshore call center to dial on it without consent, but selling it to them is just selling the data. If it doesn't necessarily, you don't know what those people are going to use it for. And so I think when people try to maximize their margins by selling their legacy dialer data or by selling their legacy consumer data, it creates this situation where they make a little bit of money, but when everyone's doing it, and clearly they are, we start getting 100 phone calls a day, and it just dilutes the entire pool, and it creates this really terrible problem for anyone who's doing legitimate telemarketing.
Is there anything that you like regular Joe Schmoes like us, or me, I should say, can do to like combat this, or are we just all kind of going along for the ride?
I mean, I'm a Joe Schmo with you on this one, Josh. I can't make my phone stop ringing. I literally will not.
I have it on Do Not Disturb all the time now. It sucks because it's annoying.
I mean, I get emails all the time, even in our industry for certain conferences and trade shows that just say, "Hey, Josh, this is so-and-so. Do you want to buy all the data for the attendees list of this conference?" And I get them all the time.
I saw that.
And they seem bot generated. I mean, they don't even seem like real people, but it's like, who's buying that? And what
it's not bot
are they
generated.
doing?
They crawl
Look,
the
let's touch
apps.
on that. Yeah. So we've bought that data before just to see if it was worthwhile. And the email addresses are like 80,
40%.
90% deliverable on the high end.
I've seen way worse.
Obviously it gets way worse. The phone numbers are not necessarily deliverable. They're like crawled.
It's a lot of the
processed.
corporate headquarter numbers. So like someone says they work at Google, and then you call them, it's like the Google, the Google phone number, like on the phone book in Silicon Valley or whatever.
Yeah, or any phone number they can find that's associated with the company. It might be some random person in accounting's phone. And so
it could be like a
I
fax.
think, Josh, exactly. Fax like that also plays a role here. If our numbers are easily found, and a lot of the times they are, mine is for sure, then it can end up on those lists that way as well. And then we just get more and more phone calls. Like it just never stops. There's no way to block it because they keep using different phone numbers. And so, for instance, our carrier partners have introduced all the T10 DLC requirements. They now require us to verify phone numbers if they're not on network. So if they don't hold the phone number or you're not licensed, you have to verify the phone number through text authentication. So they're trying to reduce spam. On the outbound side, terminations becoming harder. There's a lot more KYC, a lot more compliance. And so I think that the carriers and the VoIP carriers, a lot of them are trying very hard to resolve this issue. But I think there's just so many offshore players that are just hammering the networks. It's impossible to really stop the problem.
And those carriers are dealing with so many moving parts too. It makes it even harder.
Well, I saw like Discover Card has a commercial. They're like, use our credit card and we'll like help protect your data from all these things, which is like genius from a marketing standpoint with what's going on. But it's like, is that really like going to make a difference?
It's just all that identity protection shit.
Yeah.
It's worthless.
The only thing that's stopping my phone ringing is if I put it in a bucket of water.
Yeah.
Oh, it's an iPhone. It's okay. So a bucket of water for like 10 hours.
Weak, yeah. Or high depth.
I got mine to stop. You got to call your carrier. There's a couple of moves. You got to call your carrier, and they have a spam block feature. For some bizarre reason, you have to call and have it activated. There's a spam block feature. I got added to the Blacklist Alliance. You guys could add yourselves to Ringba's TCPA litigator firewall, even though you're not litigators. But that certainly helped. My friends at the Blacklist Alliance added me there. That helped a lot. And believe it or not, if you have any connections in the Pakistani call center community, they have an aggregated list for people that don't want to buy the Blacklist Alliance. That is like a super do not call list in Rawalpindi, Pakistan. That when I did those three things, it reduced 95% of my spend.
Nice. Dave,
some great feedback.
Dave, I just wanted to give you the floor real quick before we wrap this up. Anything you want to tell us or our users about WeCall, future of the pay-per-call space, anything you're looking forward to coming up or that we should know about, feel free to plug it right here.
What could I say? I think the pay-per-call space is just incredible. I think that we're in the early stages of it, and there's just so much more potential. I'm seeing more and more folks in the performance-based marketing, in the performance marketing space, move over to pay-per-call, because this is really where the action is. And at the end of the day, it makes perfect sense. We drive value for our customers. We have a very specific mission to the bottom line, and we do that. And when you do that, you get rewarded. And it's so clear, it's so transparent, and it's that we're driving value for our partners. And there's something extremely comforting about that, to know that when you're driving value for somebody, it's going to grow. So, the performance-based marketing industry by nature is like that. And pay-per-call is just a shining example, is the epitome of that, So I just love this space. I love growing. I love helping folks in the industry. And I really enjoyed being on this podcast. So thanks for having me, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, the first official guest
Dave.
of the return of the show, man. We appreciate it. I hope we can see you at a conference in the near future. Adam, Harrison, anything you guys want to leave us with? Or are we all good?
No, just really excited to get this rocking.
Should I do the classic affiliate marketing show sign off?
Yeah, well, I don't even know what it is, so please.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah,
what's that?
That's how classic it is.
All right, here we go. For Adam, Harrison, and Dave, myself, Josh of OfferVault.com, make that paper, make that dough. This was the Affiliate Marketing Show. We'll see you next time, everybody.
Wanna make that dough.
Oh, yeah.
All right, thanks, guys.
Affiliate marketing show.